In honor of Friday the 13th being in October this year, this month's D&D villain is all about the frightening Oogie Boogie. I love Halloween, everything spooky, and Friday the 13th in October is really about as spooky as it gets. Before we jump in, make a wisdom saving throw. If your roll is higher than mine, like this video. If mine is higher than yours, subscribe. Every time I create a new monster stat block, I try to see if there's an existing monster in the monster manual that I can sort of use as a springboard for my new monster. That way, I don't have to reinvent the wheel, and I don't have to start from scratch all the time. With Oogie Boogie's case, I decided to use the Scarecrow as a starting point, and my reasoning behind that is because the Scarecrows are constructs made of burlap stuffed with straw, and Oogie Boogie appears to be a burlap sack stuffed with bugs. But in my mind, they're pretty similar creatures at their core. Beyond that though, there's really nothing similar. For starters, Oogie Boogie is a large, haunted construct, chaotic evil. What's a haunted construct? Well, the Boogeyman, that's who. I tried to use as many unlucky numbers as I could in this stat block. There are a lot of 13s in particular, including his challenge rating. I did try to have the CR match up with his abilities and hit points, and honestly, I think I did okay, but it does remain to be tested. There are a lot of basic features here, the most prominent being his vulnerability to acid damage. I was inspired by his fate in the Nightmare Before Christmas film, when all of his bugs fell out into a boiling vat of acid and perished. He is immune to poison and necrotic damages and resistant to physical non-magical attacks. He has an impressive array of condition immunities, and these are copied over from the Scarecrow, except the immunity to being frightened is missing. This is because Oogie Boogie is capable of being afraid. After all, he does fear Jack Skellington. His unique features include loaded dice, where he uses a special set of dice in his possession to tip things in his favor. This translates to Oogie having advantage on all d20 rolls. His weapons are considered magical, and he has the regeneration ability. Acid negates this regeneration. I am particularly proud of his actions. He has the multi-attack action, dealing 2 attacks per turn, and a bite action that deals necrotic damage. Now, I'll give credit where credit is due, and say that his Devour and Burrowing Worm actions were inspired by an Oogie Boogie stat block I found on Pinterest some time ago. The names of these actions are the same, but I put my own twist on their specific functions, making them my own. They are both very sinister and nasty, just like the creature that uses them. Devour. Oogie Boogie targets one large or smaller creature he can see within 10 feet of him. Oogie Boogie lunges at the creature with his mouth gaped open. The target must succeed on a DC 14 strength saving throw, or be swallowed whole by Oogie Boogie. While devoured, the creature is considered blinded, deafened, and restrained. For each round the creature is inside Oogie Boogie's stomach, it takes 1d10 necrotic damage, and Oogie Boogie gains 1d10 maximum hit points, and heals an additional 10 hit points with his regeneration ability. If a creature drops to 0 hit points while devoured, they automatically fail 1 death saving throw, and have disadvantage on the rest of their death saves. The remains of a creature that dies while devoured are completely digested by Oogie Boogie after 24 hours. A creature can attempt to free themselves from being devoured by succeeding on a DC 18 saving throw at the start of each of his turns, or deal at least 43 damage with a single melee attack. Oogie Boogie can only have one creature devoured at a time. Burrowing Worm is a ranged weapon attack, with +7 hit, a range of 30 to 120 feet, and is one target. On a hit, it deals 13 or 2d6 piercing damage. A creature hit with a burrowing worm must succeed on a DC 13 dexterity check, or the projectile worm will burrow beneath the creature's skin, infesting it. The worm is a tiny undead with AC 9, 3 hit points, and 2 in each ability score, and a speed of 1 foot. A creature infested this way must succeed on a DC 13 Constitution saving throw at the start of each of his turns, or become paralyzed. The creature remains paralyzed while the worm is alive. The worm dies if the infested creature is targeted by an effect, spell, or potion that cures disease or removes a curse, or after 10 or 2d6 days. He also has some lair actions that utilize some of his gadgets seen in the movie, namely his cowboy slot machines and his mechanical face cards. And these lair actions make the lair a more dangerous place by setting up obstacles and triggering traps that are in Oogie Boogie's control. From just watching Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, it's a little unclear, to me at least, what Oogie Boogie's big goals are. We get a hint of what they might be with the song his henchmen sing about kidnapping Santa Claus.
Mr. Oogie Boogie Man! Take the whole thing over then!
Given the context, this suggests that Oogie Boogie's henchmen think he might take over Christmas in place of Santa. Generally speaking though, it seems like Oogie Boogie's biggest concern is with becoming bigger and scarier, primarily by the consumption of bugs, and every now and again with an unlucky victim that finds his way into his lair, as with the case in Santa Claus, getting sent down the chute by Box, Shock, and Barrel, and Oogie Boogie's intentions to eat him later. This is where his devour action comes into primary focus. In a combat situation, it will be the first and probably only action Oogie Boogie takes until he has a victim devoured. Once he has one victim in his stomach, he won't need one for at least a day, and at that point he will turn to his burrowing worm attack to paralyze the rest of the creatures within his lair and save them for consumption later. Within days, each paralyzed creature will be devoured and digested by Oogie Boogie, and Oogie Boogie only gets stronger with each creature he eats. Oogie will not venture outside of his lair that much, if at all. He lurks in his dungeon amongst his torture devices and sends his henchmen out on his behalf to bring him back victims to terrorize and consume. Oogie loves to toy with this food, especially if they're a sentient being, and he has plenty of torture devices within his chambers to make that happen. Because Oogie Boogie loves to roll the dice, there's always a chance that no one particular torture method will spell the end for any victim, but there are plenty of devices within his lair, so the odds really are stacked against anyone trapped within Oogie Boogie's clutches. Oogie will only ever pull the lever, so to speak, once he is bored. At that point, he will cheat with his dice, with the roll being in his favor, and it's into the soup with his victim. Oogie Boogie is a gambling man, so rolling dice to determine outcomes is very much right up his alley. He uses 2 6-sided dice for his gambles. This can translate into how the character is portrayed by the DM. When he has a victim caught in a device, he'll roll the dice to determine if that victim is harmed and to what degree. His choices revolve around his warped idea of fear. What sets him apart from the other denizens of Halloween Town is his depravity. He is sadistic in nature, and his choices as a character should convey that. This comes out in his joy of torturing his victims. It is entertaining to him, and he revels in the suffering of others. I would like to think of him as maybe a crazed serial killer, and build his personality from there. Otherwise, he has a very basic instinct: survival. This is dependent on his regular consumption of bugs. It's a twisted and unnatural instinct that mirrors a very real instinct that all living creatures possess. If he perceives a real threat, all of his decisions will be made in the interest of self-preservation. Thanks so much for watching. If you got this far, the link for his stat block is in the description of the video below. Feel free to use it in any of your games moving forward, and happy Halloween, everyone.